receive in large numbers once again. So this, I think we have been going quite coherently. We discussed about Bharat, we discussed about digital economy, and now we are going to discuss more about the data. How many of you are aware about digital arrest? How many of you have been arrested digitally already? I think earlier people used to be very worried when there was a physical arrest, but now people are worried about digital arrest. So anyway, so that is happening only because of the challenges like data, right? I think background of the data is shared everywhere. But before that, I have a very interesting panel. मुझे लगता है कि अगर आपको AI सीखना है तो आप हरी के पास चले जाइए. अगर AI सीख के आपने कंटेंट बना लिया, ब्रॉडकास्ट करना है तो आप भास्कर के पास चले जाइए. कुछ स्टार्टअप क्रिएट करना है, पैसे चाहिए तो वी हैव इमरान. और ये सब करने के बाद अगर घूमना फिरना है तो you know where to go. To begin with, we are living in a world of data, and they say data is oil, data is on fire, data is world war everywhere, right? So Imran, you being an investor, you are investing, being a PE guy, investing in growth capitals. I just wanted to know the challenge that India has today is not a data. You know, enough of data we have. Matlab, every fintech and startup will have so much data of me and everyone that they even don't know what to do with it. Right? So what, according to you, is the right playbook that companies should build for better data analysis? What is the problem that they solve with this data? Because you deal with so many, startups and fintechs, I want you to tell this.
Thank you, Amol. So let's start with, what is the purpose of data? The purpose of data ultimately is if data can be transformed into intelligence to deliver customer value or actionable insights for a business. These are the only two purposes of data. Otherwise, data and for data's sake, which was the arms race, let's say from the 1990s, where centralized big data lakes were created because at some point we will find a use case for it, has created a lot of wastage. So, a recent white paper by Splunk, which is, I believe, a Cisco division, did a survey of, global CIOs, and they estimated that 55% of global enterprises have what they call dark data, which is data that exists, like you said. It's coming out of our ears, but it's unusable, unquantifiable. Now the question is, why is this? At the heart of this, it's a human problem. It has nothing to do with technology. The fact is that organizations have been designed for the industrial age. They tend to be, businesses and organizations have been built for scale. Scale was widely seen as a competitive advantage. So, these are large global companies with centralized data, hierarchical organizations, and a rule-based and contract-based system of working. In today's world, to quote a book that was written by one of our board members, Arindam Bhattacharya, you guys should actually pick it up, it's an ebook. He envisions a fractal organization. Today in Fortune 500 boardrooms, people are citing examples of startups, many of you who are in the audience, as examples of how their organization should look like. So one big message for all of you is that as you think about scaling your business, as you think about using data for AI applications, etc., remember that the incumbents are already looking at you, startups, in countries like India as their biggest threat. And what is your biggest advantage? Your biggest advantage is that you are close to the customer, you're local, you're data first, and you're decentralized, and therefore you're agile. So at the heart, I think, of this whole problem of billions of dollars spent on just collecting data, 55% of it being unusable, at the heart of that problem is to reimagine the organization. Reimagine it as almost a fractal where your data capture is at the customer end. Your sensors are close to the customers, and your data translates into intelligence that is available in real time to where action is needed. That is the organization and configuration of the future.
Okay. Very realistic one. Thanks for adding that, Imran. Sabina, let me come to you. the interesting part is the moment you go to Google and say that I want a ticket from Bombay to Delhi, you're gone. Everyone will give you lots of offers, right? So on one way, sometimes it's disturbing, but on the other end, it's so helpful that you're getting so many offers and you see how the data has shaped up so well. So what are the future strategies, data strategies that you think will develop business and help businesses specifically for the portals like you?
So for e-commerce, if I may specify, e-commerce you have suppliers on one side and consumers on one side. And they're basically e-commerce. We are also part of the e-commerce side. So what I feel is that real-time integration, data integration between platforms is very critical. That going forward will change the way you work. So and the airlines, I'll give examples from my trade only, the airlines, the hotels, the visa suppliers, the cab suppliers, they have to have real-time platform integration, which are AI-based or cloud-based integrations, which actually happen on and transfer real-time data to each other as such. And from the travel management consultants like us, then it goes out to the consumer real-time. That is the way forward. You can't depend on that the feed has come in and then you're refreshing it after a few minutes or after something, because by that time the airline fare has gone, by the time the hotel fare is gone, and it's not real time. So real-time data integration between platforms is the way going forward. Also, if I may say, advanced APIs and advanced reverse feed integrations are very important. So it's not only that you're pushing data, but you're also pulling data from each other to give the customer the real-time picture and give him complete convenience about his booking. So it has to be push and pull both times. So it has to be integrations which are reverse integrations, and they have to be highly advanced APIs now. You can't depend on an API that you developed 10 years back or 5 years back. These APIs have to be cloud-based, have to be AI-based, and have to keep on developing further. Then I feel what is the second most important point is safety and security of data. And I think blockchain comes into place at that time to prevent fraud, to prevent, I would say, data from being transferred, to enhance security, to give transparency to customer. I really feel blockchain has to be adopted very fast, and it has to be adopted by most of the e-commerce websites which are there right now to enhance safety. Data protection, as we heard on the panel, I don't want to go through it again, that it is extremely important, and going forward, it'll become more and more critical. So to adopt it from the beginning itself to ensure that these, the data, customer data is protected, not only customer data, but even supplier data is protected from all sides. And I feel that predictive AI, predictive analysis of AI is required. So when a customer comes onto the website, you should know where he's come from, what he does it. It has to be predictive and AI based. You have to know what a customer is looking for, and then give him a complete solution and give him a complete offering of what he has looked for in the past based on his, past. I think these three things, if I put them together, yes, there are many points, but if I put these three things together, I think they will change the way going forward. See, just giving you a brief that Yatra started in 2006. The point is we've remained in limelight and we've remained effective till now because we have adopted ourselves along the way with all the new things that have come into being. And believe me, right now, digitization and automation is the way forward. So that I feel is the most important thing. And if you're not digitized and you're not automized, it's a very short game that you're playing.
Yeah, that was absolutely, that was very, very extremely meaningful, Sabina. Baskar, let me take your views here. Sabina spoke about predictive analytics, offering the choices to the customers in real time and integrating the data from all the sources, right? That's where we are heading towards that automation. In fact, now what has happened is, while she was saying that we should have better choices to customers, I remember an example of bankers. Bankers are now, by looking at the customer and the kind of clothes that he's wearing, they're thinking whether he's eligible for a loan or not. So by any chance, if you wear a red shirt and go to a bank, you're rejected. Please note this. So, Baskar, my question to you is, while we are heading towards a real-time world, what kind of role the whole cloud solutions and the cloud will provide? Because ultimately, the enterprises and the institutions will have to access the data in real time wherever the customer is. Today, the customer could be in Hyderabad. Tomorrow, it could be in Bangalore. So how the clouds will shape up?
So if we look at it from a again, just to give you context of Amagi and kind of in that context, I'll try to explain this. We're a media technology company. Just to give you context, we run about 6,000 plus channels, hundreds of thousands of hours of live sports, and we reach close to about 25, 30 million people every month in terms of, so there's petabytes of data coming in, right? If you look at it, data is at scales which are kind of unexplainable today. In terms of, we're talking about petabytes and hexabytes of data that's coming in today for all of us in different parts of the business, for example. For us, for example, viewership content comes on a per minute basis for every viewership. That means you're talking about, think about minute by minute data about everybody. It's like massive amount of data that comes into our systems today, for example. Similarly, we get content, video content, which is in petabytes of content, and video intelligence itself is a big part of the whole thing. So fundamentally, if you look at it, this couldn't have been possible if there is no cloud infrastructure in the world. Essentially enabled us or companies like ours to scale the overall the whole data infrastructure to a point where we can actually scale it infinitely, literally infinitely in terms of doing it. Obviously, the data is going to be leveraged at the edges, like all of us. Every data is going to be at some edge, fundamentally. In our business, like what you're pointing out, Amol, is like we get data where I can tell you the television set that people are watching, and a simple nugget of things that we use is obviously, if you have a 50-inch television at home that you're watching, I know your economics is different from a 40-inch television at home. So we kind of leverage those data for how we kind of do our advertising models today, for example, right? So the question is...
You absolutely follow who's watching what, right?
We do. We know exactly what you're watching. So the fundamental idea in all of this is that use the scale of the cloud for building the data models. But essentially, obviously, the intelligence has to be delivered at the edges. And that's a reality. I think there's enough technology today for us to do it. And cloud is a no-brainer. For me, I think this fundamental value is really the scalability that it provides. And as businesses scale, the advantage is it economically scales as well, along with this. I think that's the beauty of this whole system and infrastructure. Obviously, large data lakes have been proven. It's run for the last decade that we've seen this whole scale happening. I think this is just slam dunk today that we should all be leveraging that.
Sure. On a different note, after this session, I will come to you and check how many people are watching ETBFSI and Economic Times videos on the YouTube for sure. Hari, sir, पहले तो ये बताओ कि AI की जो rally है, how real it is. सब लोग artificial intelligence use कर रहे हैं फिलहाल.
I think it's very real. Of course, like any new technology that disrupts the way we work, you know, it starts in a small place and then expands its significance, right? And that's what we're seeing with AI, right? Obviously, the first users of AI or heavy users of AI have been the tech companies and have been professionals working in technology roles, right? But today, you know, when we talk across enterprises, and since, as you mentioned earlier, at Great Learning, we are involved with upskilling of professionals, right? So we see that today AI is getting used not just by technology professionals. You could be in marketing, you could be in HR, you could be in finance. Everywhere, AI, specifically Gen AI, has a role to play to make you more productive. And every organization is thinking along those lines, right? So if you are in employment today and you're thinking about your career ahead, I think you need to, as a professional, all of us need to think that how does AI help me do my work better and faster, right? Because if you're not doing that,
absolutely,
then somebody else is doing that, and that is the threat.
Yeah. So the question that I have here, Hari, for you is, I mean, thanks for giving those views on the AI, is, you know, we are collecting data from different sources. Every startup is collecting at least data from 100 and 100 plus sources, right? But DPDP Act is coming. Privacy norms have been breached. And so many things are happening. So under this background, what could be the right way to collect and process data? Because AI will not work unless you process the data also in the right manner, right? So what have your views there?
So see, I think when we talk about data, I mean, I'm sure all the panelists here are already implementing all of this, but just for the benefit of the audience, when we think about data, often we think as a layman, we may only think around structured data, right? Which is, you know, data, let's say a financial transaction data or a demography data or an identification data, right? That, of course, is part of the whole, you know, data bucket. But there is a lot of data beyond that which is unstructured, right? Which is what you watch, what you read, what are you talking about, right? How are you interacting on social media, right? All of that is unstructured data, right? And the biggest businesses that are getting built are the ones who have the ability to derive insights from unstructured data, right? That is where the future is, right? That is where the opportunity is, right? So, if there are any, aspiring startup entrepreneurs here, right? If you take that as a problem statement and if you say that, okay, for my customer or for my set of customers, I will bring the ability to look at unstructured data and solve a specific problem. It could be in travel, it could be in education, it could be in entertainment, right? That's a huge thing that's going to open up, right? Now, to your question, when we think about data and the laws that govern it, see, at Great Learning, we today serve learners from about 170 countries, right? And as you're aware, every country usually has a very different data standard, right? So, for example, for our learners who are coming in from Europe, right, the data privacy standards are very high, right? So what we adopt, and I think this is what every business adopts right now or will have to adopt, is that you have to be completely transparent in terms of what is the data that is being captured, how is it being stored, you have the consent to revoke that data access, and how will this be processed? And obviously, as a business, be very transparent in the fact that we are not going to sell your data ahead, right? And if you do happen to be in that business, which is, let's say, if you are in the business of advertising and so on, then make sure you're mentioning that to the user and let the user decide.
Certainly, noted your points. What I will do is I have obviously a couple of questions and second round of questions is still there, but I will involve you. Earlier I didn't get a chance to come to you, but if anybody has any important question, because this is a very, very important topic, please raise your hands and yes, can you have a mic there, please? So we'll try to make it more engaging. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, in this artificial intelligence world, how secure is the data? Because as I understand, nothing is remain in privacy in artificial intelligence world. So how to tackle this?
Yeah. Baskar, you want to take that? How secure is the data is the question gentleman is asking.
I think it depends on what you use today, right? I think there have been a lot of work that's happening in making it secure. You need to be careful on what you're trying to use. If you're using consumer grade AI tool sets and expecting security that you don't get. But if you look at it from an enterprise standpoint, there are a lot of tools today demonstrate security. And if you look at it, there are three sources of data that really you work with. One is the reasoning information that comes as part of the large language models and others. That's already been pre-trained to an extent. Then there is web sources that actually goes for real time, for example. That's again, obviously goes to the public web and it does it. Even there, we've seen security credentials to be leveraged where you can do that. Third is private data, which is your own data inside your organizations. That needs to be fed into the system so that the reasoning systems can do a better job of bringing back really good insights and actionable things that you'd like to do, for example. All of this today, there are frameworks that have kind of evolved rapidly. Over the last 12 months, we've seen a bunch of frameworks coming in, starting with obviously the agentic aspects of what we're seeing, but with the really security built into the system and explainability and accountability that the last panel was talking about. We're seeing a lot more progress on that front as we speak today. So I think like any other enterprise technology, this will eventually become secure because we cannot be in the wild west of allowing them to kind of be completely wayward will not help. So I'm seeing a lot of progression on that front.
Okay, noted your points. Anyone has any other question specifically on the data front? Okay, can you please stand up? Yeah, I can't see because of the light. Yes, can you have a mic there?
Hi, my name is Amit. We are talking so much about data and obviously the market intelligence. In the era of AI, how exactly in the data validation, because today data fragmentation is the biggest problem. Everyone has got a data and everyone is talking their own insight, their own finding, apni dhapli apna rak kind of stuff. So how exactly in the era of AI, where almost everyone in this room is using, depending on the AI, on chatbots and trying to get market intelligence to them, how it is going to impact this market intelligence space?
I think I missed it, but Hari, I think what he's trying to say is how you can use data with AI intelligence. Is that what you're trying to?
My question is whether this is going to create an impact on that, it is going to affect it, it is going to help it, or how exactly?
Okay. You want to add? Okay, Hari, go ahead and then maybe Sabina can add.
Sorry, I understood the question as the importance of data validation because I heard data validation was, okay, how a business is going to use this data that they're capturing.
That's what you said.
Okay, I think let's just answer that question then. That how a business is going to use this data. See, I think today the way businesses are set up, every business, irrespective of scale, it could be a startup or it could be a Fortune 50 company. Every business captures a ton of data. They're set up like that, right? Because businesses have that ability, and usually the smart businesses know why they are capturing that data, right? So the more data that you capture for a customer or even a prospect that's coming to interface with your business, the more you're able to learn about that customer, more you're able to learn about customers like that customer, and more you're able to learn about the market, right? So today, every key strategic decision that a business takes, right, is not driven by gut or intuition, right? Is driven by data, right? And that is the way it has been for a few years, and increasingly so that is the way it's going to be, right? So when you think of businesses and business success from this paradigm, then obviously what is most important is that A, are you capturing the right data, and are you set up to use it the right way, right? So, and this is all an evolving paradigm. Let me just repeat that, right? So what we know today, or our ability to work with data today may change very, very fast over the next 3 or 6 months, and we may be able to do a lot more with data, right? But it is important to be set up as a business such that it's data driven, and that's, I won't say that's a recipe for success. I think that's just a hygiene now. If you're not set up for success, if you're not thinking as a data-driven business, then you're just set up for failure, I feel.
I completely validate his point. If you do not analyze the data that you have and analyze the data to grow your business or the relevance, you need to understand what is relevant for your business in that data. If you do not, you'll be left far behind. That's the way going forward. That is right now is hygiene. Believe me, you cannot ignore that. You cannot ignore data right now because I'll give you an example for travel. Now, I have a person who's coming on my website, is booking only Delhi, Bombay. Why would I bore him with Bangalore? Why would I open his page for Bangalore to, when he comes next time to my site? Why would I open up Bangalore to Chennai when I know that he only travels between Bombay and Delhi and back and forth? I will open up that page only. I know he stays in these particular hotels in this city. I will open up the best offers in those cities. Why would I let him waste his time around the site? Everybody's time is important. He needs to see what data, what information is relevant to him. So I think it's really, really, I just explained it to you with an example how we have to use data on a daily basis.
Okay.
May I offer a perspective, Amol?
Sure.
So, a lot of boardrooms around the world have exactly this question. Like, is this useful? Like, we keep talking about AI and we'll have to organize our data. What's the ROI on it? I want to share 3 perspectives. One is there are billions of dollars of contracts signed for AI transformation projects that are backlogged, and they are in the waiting room waiting for this so-called data, which is the fuel of AI projects, to get organized. So it's a massive problem, right? Everyone wants to use AI, but the first step of that is to organize data. And what is the answer to organizing data? Let me give you a simple example. Remember, we used to, we often say that a patient is not just the patient number, a student is not his enrollment number, a customer is not the customer ID. What does that mean? It means that most organizations have a very siloed, narrow aperture view of the customer, right? So the very first step about data is not collecting more data in that narrow aperture. It is about widening that aperture, which means if you're a bank, you have to have a one view of the customer, from credit cards to home loans to everything that he or she does. If you're a student and a school that cares about data, you need to have longitudinal data of a child that has started in grade 1 or preschool all the way to university. Otherwise, there's no point having data of a point in time. It's not a balance sheet, that you draw. And if you're a patient, you need data that combines the data from diagnosis to your general physician, to the hospital, to surgery, to insurance. And at the heart of all of this is a physical problem. These problems cannot be solved in the CIO's office. You have to reimagine your organization. So humans, the way they're organized, which is org structure, and the workflows, all 3 need to be reimagined for us to get a high ROI on AI. Just wanted to share that perspective.
Oh, sure. So let me go back to a couple of questions that I have, and I will start with you, Baskar. So now everybody has tons of data, and we partly discussed that how they're processing it. But since we are all building AI and ML models on it, having a organized, authentic, and more importantly, the best of the best data will make a big difference, right? So the question to you is how and what future data strategies as the mode of data sharing and data connect will evolve according to you?
See, the question, what I think AI and the agentic world is opening up is also the availability of whether we can actually share data across organizations. If you look at it earlier, we were kind of stuck in the world of two things, right? One is either it's structured data and having proprietary pipes connecting organizations so that data can be shared. Now, if you look at it, obviously we had APIs through which people are actually accessing each other, either for control purposes or for data access purposes, for example. What the agentic world and the AI world is trying to provide us is really turbocharge that whole idea. We don't give in the reasoning engines in the middle. Today, you can actually create a marketplace of data across multitude of different sources very rapidly. What used to take maybe, I don't know, years for integrations, you can do it in days today in being able to kind of connect rapid amount of data to come together. And the beauty is it need not be in the same semantics and the structure that we as humans could actually identify. Now the machines are able to kind of extract the data, process them, and eventually be able to normalize them. So the normalization is a big problem in the industry if you're talking about multi-data sources coming in, either because of the hierarchy of data that you would get in, or in terms of the semantics of what you're trying to get in. Today, machines are able to correlate the data much better and much faster. We have internal, for example, we went through a project which I think we could build it in a single night, one night, which I think would have taken us at least 90 days to 6 months to get the normalized data, piping from multiple other sources, for example. So I'm seeing real examples of how, leave alone AI consuming it, AI is aiding us to kind of access a lot more data, a lot more disparate set of sources from where you can access it, and from third parties and different companies coming together. So what you're seeing in this whole thing is, I'm imagining a world in the next 5 years, possibly, or even earlier, given how speed at which things are going, is a big data mesh across all enterprise data, not only the public web. Today, public web is a data source for all of us. But I truly feel there could be completely an enterprise data mesh across all organizations in the world, obviously with governance set in, privacy set in, security policies put in place, where you can have a tremendously large data infrastructure, which the world has not seen. This has always been closed data to some extent. I think there is a tremendous value to bring that data mesh out of the enterprises and create a new mesh which can actually be overlaying on the public web that we already have. And that's going to be the biggest opportunity and the promise that I think from the technologies.
Interesting. So we are going to witness a world of James Bond and Mission Impossible, where you land in Hyderabad and Benji, there is a chicken biryani opening for you. You go to Bangalore, there a filter copy is there, right? Maybe that's how the data world and AI analytics will help you. Sabina, my question is not very different from what I asked you some time back, and where you spoke about automation and real time. But is it now the companies like you will absolutely focus on analytics playbook so that your business will be double, triple, and all the businesses will be based on completely analytics of the data and everything?
Absolutely. I think for us to analyze the data that we actually collect is very, very important. Firstly, I think in my business or in our business, predictive analysis, predictive AI is extremely important. We have moved away from static recommendations to actually real-time recommendations for a customer, real-time analysis of his data. So that has happened already with us. And going forward, it will carry on being more advanced. So there is no static recommendation of months apart. We analyze his data or the customer's data or whatever he's used, build it up, and then give him the a complete itinerary. So if he's somebody who's looking for example, for New York, but we know he's a family of 4. He travels in a family, so we will create a family itinerary for him. He specifies it. We know his children who've traveled with him earlier are below 12 because that's the fare difference. So then we customize an itinerary and throw it out to him so that he doesn't have to really. And then he comes back and plays around with it and then finds the right place. But it has to be completely real-time predictive analysis rather than static recommendations. The second part, which I feel, is analysis of his entire booking. So organizations or even small people, I would say small enterprises to SMEs who are actually now building their businesses need to know or need to get the best price for the hotel, best cancellations deals, because see, a corporate customer, an SME customer does cancel more often than a real-time consumer who's going for his personal holiday. They do tend to change because of the appointments that they have. So you want fares which are completely negotiable, can be changed easily. And we need to analyze that data for you. So when you're putting that in, throw the best fare which is recommended. So what we've built, our analytical tool is on Power BI. What we do is daily recommend, so your spend today, your spend yesterday, your spend of last week of March versus in 24 versus 25, whatever you spent, where is the fare increasing, which airline the price is increasing. So if you booked within 0 to 3 days, this is what the fare looks like. If you book between 3 to 6 days, this is what the fare looks like, and it's real time. There's no manual intervention. I'm just, whatever you're booking is what I'm analyzing in different formats for you. So for even an SME, this is extremely important for him to do. Now you may have budgets per department. So, or you may have a budget per organization or per person. We can actually pull up that budget for you. So a sales team can be allowed to spend 1 CR annually, for example. And once he's reaching a threshold of 75, we send an alarm for him, for the organization to plan well in advance. So you may have a target. So large organizations will have a target on hotels. They will have a target on an Air India or Vistara, I mean now Air India together, and on Indigo. What we do is we send him, okay, your Air India target is meeting. Now push your business towards the other airlines where your target is not meeting. What does it achieve? Cost optimization, cost savings, and complete convenience to him. He knows real time. He clicks, the presentation format is format. He's not really waiting for someone to play around with this data. So that for us is extremely important when we do that. So budget tool, expense is something that we have now built, and it's complete Gen AI based. So it actually helps you to optimize your costs. So we cover CTC expenses in that and non-CTC expenses also in that. So it's so once you've booked your travel from your airline, hotel automatically captures whatever you booked through the partner. And then something that you spent over and above that, your overheads can also be captured in that. And it's completely Gen AI based. It is not manual, it's not something you scan your voucher and it automatically covers everything. Automatically copies the voucher number, there's no manual entry that you need to do, and automatically calculates the cost per trip. Now there are certain expenditures which you may have, which are CTC. You can also claim it in the same tool. So what we've tried to do is one-stop shop for the entire thing. And that for us is going forward. An analysis of a business, whether it's an SME or whether it's a large enterprise, is extremely important for them to understand and then calculate the expenses for next year. So I think we are doing that right now. And I think going forward, we will keep advancing those.
No, certainly that was.
I was thinking one interesting scenario that you should play out with also is the assumption you're making is your website is going to be a human-to-machine interaction.
Absolutely, it is.
Now it's going to be a machine-to-machine interaction.
Yes.
Because all of us are going into web agents,
yes,
which on our behalf is going to do things.
It's
So
going to do it on your behalf.
Completely.
Completely. And you don't just scan your voucher and it all copies everything, including the GST cost, which is now very important. It captures the GST cost also separately because you can't claim it can be claimable or not. Even for the hotel voucher, what we've done is a GST dashboard. So it tells you if you've gone to 10 hotels, have you pulled the GST from them or not? And if it's not, then we help you with the Gen AI. We help you to pull the GST from the different hotels or the airline partners. So even to that factor, the manual intervention is going. We don't have someone calling up the airline and telling them, we go to their websites and pull it out for you directly. So that's the way going forward, frankly speaking.
That sounds really good, but we will be more happy if we get some vouchers, maybe all of us.
Definitely.
Imran, you have invested heavily into startups, and fintechs. In fact, Sciency is one of your,
Yeah, and we have one here, Lead Squared. Prashant is right here.
So my question is, going ahead, will you look at data analytics playbook as a metrics of the startup and fintech while investing in that company, or will you invest in such companies more?
A short answer is absolutely, Amol. And by the way, I really like your vision, Baskar, of an enterprise-wide mesh. It's truly like the abstraction of, let's say, a lake, a terrestrial lake and truly the borderless cloud that we talk about. So something for me to think about. I might borrow that. I'll give you some credit for it. But I think, in addition to an enterprise-wide mesh, you'll see the basis of competition, Amol, in this world of data changing. We have a very interesting company called Amber, which is an Airbnb for student accommodation. So they are a marketplace that helps students around the world find student accommodation when they move cities to go to college, right? Now, at the face of it, it seems like a very simple marketplace, a matching engine between the demand side and the supply side. But actually, the data science team within Amber is sitting at the crosshairs of global international student mobility data, global rental data, right? Almost geopolitics at some level, immigration laws. And until now, it wasn't possible to have this kind of cross-functional, cross-industry, macroeconomic data powering a business. So, when you talk about this vision of a mesh, I think you'll see certain businesses now deepening their competitive moats by leveraging this kind of data, and it'll be super cool. And I do agree that at some point you'll have machines talking to machines. Hopefully, if we can get the basics done, which is get the data organized, we might see a huge multiplier on productivity as well.
Sure, meaningful. I would like to Baskar off the record. If machines are talking to machines, what the humans will do, or maybe perhaps
Watching television.
Interesting one. Hari, I'm sure a lot of interest specifically for the AI-driven courses now, but again, the same question that I asked to Sabina, what kind of business models are being built over data and specifically with analytics playbook that you see on the background of AI?
So on the, on your observation about the increasing interest in AI courses, just to put that in numbers, overall, in the last 12 months, our enrollments into AI courses globally has gone up by close to 90%, right? And this is at a very large scale, right? So, and this is cutting across demography, right? So it's experienced people, it is college graduates, fresh out of college, right? So I think that message is very loud and clear, right? That you cannot build a career, without understanding what AI is at some level and without being a user of Gen AI, right? So hence that is driving the interest, right? I think to your question in terms of what business models, I feel, the ability to understand that data is critical to business, I think that starts right from day one. It is not it cannot be an acquired taste after you run the company for 5 years, right? So this is as critical to business as anything else, right? Obviously, if you're a very young startup in your first year of inception, you are constrained by how much data can you capture, right? But that does not mean that you should not be thinking along those lines, right? As you grow in scale, you will also grow in the ability to capture more data and thereby, take better decisions, right? But this is something that founders and, leadership has to drive home right from right from day one, that this is how the business will get built, right? And today, at least in all the businesses that, the various startups and so that I interact with, I see that this is a very common aspect, right? Everybody, when they try to analyze what has gone wrong or right, or how should they plan for the next 3 months, 4 months, or what features in a product should they launch, right? Or which markets should they go after, which segment should they go after, all of that is completely data-driven, as it should be. I think the difference lies in, different businesses have different ability to capture data and, of course, the ability to analyze data, right? The ones who succeed are the ones who do this better.
Sure, and the last question to you, Baskar, the time is just, watch is ticking now, specifically on the DPDP Act. What kinds of difference do you think DPDP Act will make, specifically on the data strategies?
No, I think it'll, see, we've been in a wild west of data collection that we've been talking about. I think bringing a structure and a regulation around it, I think is super important for the industry overall. I think it's important to have some sort of a governance model that we put in place. I think that's a step in the right direction for the country and for the economy. The other aspect is I always believe that there is a sweet middle that we need to look at between privacy and what you want to do with the data. I think it's super important for us to, I think we don't need to wait for a GDPR-like regulation to be that. I think it's important for us as entrepreneurs, businesses, to respect the privacy of our consumers. And it's an important aspect just from a moral and ethical aspect of things, and not really just by the legal frameworks. Obviously, these laws and what we're seeing from a governance standpoint is driving that towards the direction. But I would urge companies, startups, businesses, and entrepreneurs to look beyond themselves as a country. How do we become more responsible in terms of how we deal with data of end consumers? Because educating end consumers in India is a massive task. It's just going to be impossible. Given the size of the country, and educating everybody to become privacy aware is not going to be a reality. I think it's in each one of us, as we start businesses, run things, to take that fundamental responsibility as citizens of this country to kind of drive that. So these laws are definitely a step in the right direction, I see. But I think use that as a guideline, but drive a lot more accountability through the companies and the architects and designers of these systems to drive that. That would be my recommendation of how I see this.
No, certainly, I think that was very relevant one. Thanks for adding that, and those were the remarkable thoughts from, I think, each one of you. Thank you for sharing that, and again, thank you so much for listening to us. I think that's it. The time is up. But on the data front, I always believe that it's like that Frankenstein story. The monster is growing, and one point of time, Frankenstein didn't know how to tame it. I think that should not be the end of the data stories by any institution. The data is going out of control, and they do not know how to do that. Thank you so much for listening to us very patiently, and thank you once again for sharing those remarks.